This is the Horse Radio Network.
Greetings, everyone. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily, episode 1367, brought to you by Greenflower Botanicals. And today, Rodger from Greenflower is going to explain what CBD oil is. May be surprised. And then in our main topic, Dr. Oscar Fletcher joins us from the driving radio show hosts Glenn and Dr. Ying, and they're going to cover everything you need to know about equine infectious anemia and Coggins tests.
And now our own Dr. Wendy Ying speaks with Rodger from Greenflower Botanicals in a series we call CBD Oil 101.
Today, we're going to do CBD Oil 101. So, Rodger, what is CBD oil and how can it benefit us?
First of all, CBD is a cannabinoid that we find in hemp as well as in marijuana plants. And so hemp and marijuana are kind of sister plants. And we extract that out of the hemp plant, and it is one of about 100 different cannabinoids that are found in these plants. And each of these cannabinoids have some type of medicinal benefit. CBD especially carries just a tremendous amount of medicinal benefits. If you're familiar with the medical marijuana movement, CBD is actually the cannabinoid that's responsible for most of the medicinal benefit coming out of the medical marijuana movement. But the difference is it, unlike THC, which is probably the most famous cannabinoid people are familiar with, it does not get you high. It has no intoxicating properties to it. And because we're able to extract it out of hemp, it's federally legal and legal in all states.
And what kind of conditions can we use CBD oil for in both people and animals?
Well, CBD actually can be used for a host of things. Some of the most popular ones are anxiety, it's an anti-inflammatory, it's an analgesic, so it's wonderful for combating pain. It is antioxidant. It's good for nausea and things of that, so very soothing to the stomach. But again, probably the lion's share of people that are purchasing it are coming at it to relieve pain or anxiety in their horses or their animals. For dogs, it's wonderful for separation anxiety, or they get upset with storms, joint issues, stomach issues, things like that. For horses, a lot of people are using it for arena anxiety and helping the animal learn more. So there's really so much that CBD oil can do.
Well, we're going to continue this conversation about CBD oil in weeks to come. So, Rodger, how can people find Greenflower and your products?
Very easy. You can go right to the website, which is greenflowerbotanicals.com. All of our products are there, and also we have a special coupon code for our HRN listeners. So once you're at checkout and you see the area for the coupon, just put in HRN, and that'll give you 20% off any of our products.
If you show your horses, please check with your federation on the legal use of CBD oil.
Well, I'm so excited. We have Oscar Fletcher, who is the Dean of NCSU College of Veterinary Medicine from 1992 to 2004. So that made him my dean way back in the 90s. And in addition to him being a veterinarian, he's also a PhD. He's done extensive research in pathology and poultry diseases and was a wonderful teacher and mentor. During his time at NCSU, he had the chance to work with Dr. Coggins, who was the head of the first pathology department at NCSU College of Veterinary Medicine. And Dean Fletcher is kind enough to join us today to talk all about the history of the Coggins test and remembering Dr. Coggins. Well, Dean Fletcher, welcome to the Driving Radio Show. I'm so happy you could join us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Good to hear from you again.
I know it's been a long time since we've seen each other, but I'm so happy that you could come and be on the Chinese veterinary medicine segment of our driving radio show. And today, I thought of a kind of interesting spin on the Coggins test. We as horse owners know we always have to get a Coggins test every year, but I don't think people really understand why. And the reason I asked you to join us is because there actually was a real Dr. Coggins that invented the test, and you knew him personally, right?
That's right. Leroy Coggins was a veterinarian, graduated from Oklahoma State University, served in the military, and did a lot of work in Africa and Kenya. And that's where he perfected techniques that led him to the discovery of how to diagnose equine infectious anemia. He did that at Cornell. And later in his career, he came to NC State. He was the first department head in the Department of Microbiology, Pathology, and Parasitology. So we had 4 departments at the time, and he was the founding head of that department. So very well known, of course, because of the Coggins Test, but well known, among veterinarians involved in education simply because of his involvement both at Cornell and in administration at NC State.
Right. And so before he did his test, the only way we could tell if a horse was positive for equine infectious anemia is we'd have to take that blood from the suspect horse and inject it into another horse and see if that horse came down with the disease. So that's not a fun way to go.
No, and it's time consuming. And so the test Dr. Coggins developed, you take a blood sample, and then within a matter of a couple of days, you can get back a result as to whether or not the horse is infected. And of course, that's important because you don't want infected horses in contact with non-infected horses, because that's a source of infection, and that it gets spread by mosquitoes and biting flies and things like that. And so it's important to detect a horse that's infected. So the Coggins test provided an effective, efficient means of doing that, especially compared to the method you just described.
Yeah. And, it's such that disease has such like general symptoms. It could be so many different things. But it can spread so quickly. If 1 milliliter of blood from an acutely infected horse has enough virus to infect 1 million horses. Okay. Yeah. So it's like botulism. We don't think of it as such a dangerous thing, but just a little bit of it can infect so many animals or people. And I think too, it's really interesting that he invented this test in the 70s, right?
Yeah, I think he invented it, might have been 1970, and by early 70s, 72, 73, it had been approved for use by the USDA and became, widely used. And I haven't gone back and looked at the figures in terms of what has happened to the cases of equine infectious anemia, but you just don't hear of it happening very much. I mean, I don't think our veterinary students today, or maybe many veterinarians, have ever seen a case.
Well, yeah, that's what's so interesting about it, is that people are like, well, why do I need to get this Coggins test every year? But I did a little research before this interview, and in Florida, where, this is spread by biting flies. So Florida, we have like so many flies all year round. We're like a hotbed. So in 1970, the prevalence of equine infectious anemia was 12%. But by the year 2000, it had dropped to 0.016%, and we had 0 cases in 2017. So that tells you how effective that is.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. Now, let me tell you just a little bit about Dr. Coggins himself, because if you met him, you would never know that he was famous for inventing this test. So he was just a really nice guy, very modest, unassuming. You just would never picture that this is the guy that actually invented the Coggins test. He was very professional in all of the dealings I had with him, of course, and I think he really got faculty to respond. I think people just didn't want to disappoint him. Mm-hmm. So he was quite remarkable in that regard. I never heard of anybody say anything negative about him, but he was just a really wonderful person. I think he had a fairly large family, 4 or 5 kids, I think, and quite amazing. When he died several years ago, and the tributes that were made at his funeral were really quite impressive. So So he's one of those famous veterinarians that really accomplished something unique and really a tremendous benefit to the equine industry. I don't think we could say enough about the importance of the test in the sense of it keeps infected animals from contact with uninfected animals. And I know, I'm not a horse person, but my father certainly was a horseman in our family. But I know enough about the herd animals, and I know enough about the fact that horse people come together for a variety of events. And you're bringing horses together from a number of different sources. And so the importance of having that negative test is that we can just about prevent the occurrence of a disease, and that's reflected in the figures that you just gave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we as horse owners sometimes think, like I know my clients sometimes say to me, well, this horse never leaves the farm, so this one doesn't need a Coggins test. And I'm like, well, do the others leave the farm? Do you trail ride? Do you live in an area where horses, like Glenn and I both live in equine communities where I only live on 5 acres. So basically, I'm in an open herd with every other horse in my neighborhood. Yeah. So there's a chance that if one horse in my neighborhood had equine infectious anemia and a fly bites that horse, and then I'm riding by on the road or the trail and that fly bites my horse, I'm at risk.
Yeah, we have the equine industry is really interesting because it's so diverse depending on the type of horse you have and the type of activities you have. The veterinary college has a facility over in Southern Pines, and there's a lot of horses in that area.
Yeah.
There's adjacent to our facility is about 1,000 acres of land that's used for trail riding and fox hunting. And people bring horses from all over, and you'll see trailers parked along the highway there. And so the opportunity for one infected horse to infect others is really great. And the Coggins Test has done a really great job of eliminating that. And it couldn't have been a nicer guy that invented it. He was never arrogant or boastful about it at all. It was just very matter of fact about the kinds of things and kinds of work that he did. Interestingly enough, he went to he did his undergraduate work at NC State.
He did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he has a bachelor's degree in dairy science from NC State. And he went to Oklahoma State to veterinary school under the Southern Regional Education Board contract arrangements. A lot of NC State residents went to the University of Georgia, where I graduated, and some went to Oklahoma State, and that's where Leroy went. So he's got a strong North Carolina connection, both before he became a veterinarian and after he became famous for developing the Coggins Test.
Right. You know what else I think is really fascinating is, you think back to that time, 1970. We nowadays, molecular biology and tests like this, the ELISA, AGID, that's part of our normal understanding of things. But back in 1970, that must have been so cutting edge for him to develop something like that.
Yeah, and I think if I remember right, the original test was an agar gel diffusion test. And so he was measuring antibodies in horse blood to the viral antigen. And that you could have a little plate with little holes in it, and you'd have a positive and negative control in there, and then a group of test animals in there, and you could tell, in a fairly short period of time whether or not the horse was positive. So it was a fairly simple but very excellent and efficient way of making this diagnosis. Very important.
Yeah, it was just really, at the time, it was cutting edge, and it's great that we're still using this technology today. So, Dr. Fletcher, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your memories.
Wait a minute.
What?
Dr. Fletcher, were you not, in fact, her dean?
I meant dean, yes, sorry.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. So can you tell us any, she was probably in trouble all the time, wasn't she? Because she's so bad.
No, I'm not.
I don't remember any... anything bad about Wendy. I think she was a really good student, and look how she's turned out. Huh?
That does not make good radio. I'm telling you, it just doesn't make good radio. I was expecting all these stories. I was so excited to have you on to hear all these stories.
I have one story.
Okay.
I have one story. Dean Fletcher, I hope you don't remember this story. But I was we have the Florida State Fair across the street every year in Raleigh, and on Thursday before the fair starts, all the food trucks come and all the stuff gets set up. So my best friend from vet school and we skipped out of nutrition class and went over to the fair, and we had all these stickers, we had lemonade and all this food, and we thought, okay, we'll sneak in the front door because nobody will be coming in the front door. But if we sneak in the hospital way, they'll know that we were skipping class. So who is walking in the front door when we're coming back from the fair? But Dean Fletcher totally busted us.
At least you were engaged in nutrition at the time.
Oh, so. See, that's a good point.
Exactly. I think you said something like that. You said, girls, I'm proud of you that you're doing research about the fair.
Now, if you consider funnel cakes nutrition, I mean, then we have to look at that. Yeah.
Well, they had a lot of other fried stuff like
what you didn't know is he was coming back from there too. That's what you didn't know.
It could be.
We love Wendy. We just like to pick on her.
I know.
Yeah, that's good. So Wendy, I'm glad to know that you're still actively engaged in this profession and doing such a good job. I appreciate this opportunity to visit with you and talk about Dr. Coggins and the Coggins Test.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us.
And I think that's a wrap, everybody. Make sure to have all of the Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go by downloading the free Horse Radio Network app for your iPhone or your Android. Just search your app store for Horse Radio Network. You can also subscribe via iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. And thanks again to our sponsor today, Greenflower Botanicals. You can find them online, greenflowerbotanicals.com. This is Coach Jen, and I will be back again soon with another tip. So until then, go ride your horse. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements made by guests on the Horse Tip Daily. Please use your own judgment when listening to the tips on this show.